Hello, Make Idaho Better subscribers. It's time for another analysis video. First things first, let me give you an intro. If you don't know already, Make Idaho Better is the easiest way to be a part of state and local solutions. Instead of needing to show up at some sort of event where your participation is semi-appreciated but doesn't really lead to anything, which are most of the events that you can do regarding civic engagement, you can take only a couple minutes most weeks to respond to surveys, which then I will accumulate, analyze, publish, and then hopefully bring to some of these decision makers in state and local government or businesses and show them what this means and what they should potentially do about it. So if that sounds cool, then subscribe at this button. You'll come to our MailChimp sign-up page. You just require an email address, and then you'll get sent all the survey invitations. And if you respond to the survey, then we'll also email you the results. So for this week, the survey is about businesses supporting communities. I had a business approach me and said that they want to do more in terms of supporting their community, and they think that that's really what a big part of their responsibility. And they wanted to know what they could do best to support that. So this page has all the questions. If you want to see exactly what questions I asked, all the overall results, if you want to see those. The analysis is going to be linked here in a second. And if I get a leader interview, that'll be linked here as well. And always we need to have a super cute GIF, in this case, a little penguin going to work. Okay, so here's the analysis. So I'm going to come back to the main takeaways at the end, but we've got a table of contents here. I explain here that analysis posts are really where I go deeper below the surface of these overall results, which you can get to here. So these are publicly available on any Make Idaho Better survey, and they show you basically across every question how many people voted different ways. Okay. So for instance, you can see on this one, 43% answered this way, yada, yada, yada. And you can see that for all of them. But the analysis posts are where we show you what's the insights below the surface. Are there different groups of people that are answering differently? So we can segment certain questions with other questions to kind of arrive at some cool insights. So first things first, talk about the sample demographics. So you should always be thinking about this when you look at analysis. Who did they hear from? Was this pretty even across all the demographics? Did we hear from an equal number of, across gender, across age, across geography, or just getting a sense of who are the people we heard from? So we heard from about 50% more women, and we had a pretty even, pretty relatively even age distribution. It's not like we only heard from old people or young people. And then counties, we heard primarily from Ada County. So that was about 75% of our survey responses, though we had responses from most Idaho counties. Okay. With that in mind, let's jump into the first question, which was, is it the responsibility of businesses to support local communities? Now, this is kind of me checking the premise of this survey, being that businesses should support local communities. And I wanted to know if the people that responded to this agree with that it's actually their responsibility, a big word for that. And overwhelmingly, the answers were yes here. So we had, and that's basically what I'd expect. If you saw a survey titled Businesses Supporting Communities and you decided to answer, probably that's something that you agree with. But about 80% said yes or yes, absolutely. So let's see, can we break that down? Let's break it down by age. So here you can see proportions of each age group that answered each way. So the greens are people saying yes, it's their responsibility. This, reddish orange and dark red are saying no, it's not, and the yellows maybe. So there's not a huge difference across these age groups. There may be slight differences in that I'm not going to read too much into the 70s group. Actually, we heard from about 15 of them, 70 plus. So maybe there's something here on people in their 20s are a little less likely to say yes, and people in their 60s a little bit more, but let's not get carried away with that. This looks pretty even. Now, after looking at a bunch of different things, I found one that looked really kind of pleasing to me, where basically the green goes down as answers to another question change. So that was willingness to pay more. So we're going to go into that deeper in a second here. But basically, if you said you're willing to pay more to buy from businesses that support local communities, those people generally think that it is businesses' responsibility to support local communities. And then as their likelihood to pay more went down from yes, absolutely, to maybe to no, the proportion of people that said they thought this was business's responsibility went down as well. So this seems to be an important segment to kind of understand how different people answer. So we're going to use this quite a bit more in this analysis. So we're going to jump ahead. In the survey, this kind of came further down, but we're going to talk about it in the analysis now since it's something we're going to use quite a bit. So that thing, would you be willing to pay more, was this third part of this question, where we ask kind of, would you do these three different things, whether tell people about this business, go out of your way to buy from them, or pay more to buy from them? Would you do those things for businesses that support your community? Now, virtually everyone, about 95%, said yes, absolutely, or yes for telling people. A little over 80% said they would go out of their way, and a little over 60% said they would pay more. So that's interesting, but this is the one that seemed to be the most kind of spread out or diverse in terms of people groups, because about 40% said, I'm not so sure I'd pay more. So this is kind of what we're going to use to split up the way people answered other questions to see if we can find anything. Now, across these three things, right here, I kind of wanted to see if age had anything to do with it. So, with telling your family and friends, not really. Going out of your way, it looks like people in their 20s were less likely to say they'd probably go out of their way to buy from them. And they definitely were less likely to say that they would pay more to pay for them. So that's what I'm talking about here, is that the people in their 20s generally seem less willing to help these companies. And I would attribute that to that they have less disposable income and maybe less time. They might be in college. They might be dealing with some debt. They probably don't have very stable finances. So this isn't something that's at the highest at their priority level. And then I don't focus on this much in the rest of the analysis, but I thought the gender breakdown was interesting here, in that basically on every question, men seemed less willing to help these businesses in these different ways than women did. Women were more likely to tell somebody about these businesses and to go out of their way and to pay more, though just slightly on pay more. So that kind of fits my anecdotal experience, but also kind of previous analysis, that women generally care more and are more willing to help out. I'm not gonna go big into that, but I thought that was interesting and worth noting. Okay, next one here. How much do businesses support your local community? So I want to ask people, kind of getting personal, about wherever you live in Idaho, how much do the businesses there support the community? And people are pretty positive here. So biggest answer being a lot, and a great deal is still having quite a bit of responses. So we're looking at about 60% saying a lot or a great deal. So a little bit lower in this, I'm going to actually calculate the percentage of people in each county that said a lot or a great deal, and I'm going to call those the high support percent. So, but before I do that, I wanted to see if this willingness to pay really changed people's views on how much support that they get. And not really. Basically, whether besides this no, definitely not group, and there's only 5 people in that group, it all looks the same, whether you were absolutely pay more to help businesses that support your community to people that say, no, I wouldn't pay more. They all kind of acknowledge that they got quite a bit of support from business. Okay, now we're back to that high support question. So a map is really a better way to visualize this because, the difference in geography is probably, the difference in whether or not people feel support in their community. Some communities feel it, some don't, and let's look at that. So the darker the green, the darker the green for the county, basically the higher proportion of people in that area said that they feel a lot of support, a lot or a great deal. And then the more yellow are the people that feel the least support. Now, and the number here shows how many responses we got from each county. So we had about 200 responses from Ada County, but some of these we only had one response. For instance, Elmore, Gooding, Blaine, Jefferson, etc. We only had one response. So the fact that it's yellow is saying that the respondent that we heard from that county said that they don't get a lot of support from their businesses. So, but there is one here that's yellow that had 4 responses, and that's Madison County. So this is, of all the ones that say kind of we don't get a lot of support from businesses, that's the one I'd probably be most willing to say, or most likely to say is probably true, because we've heard from more than one person. So that's what that means. Okay, now let's get into some details. What are the best ways that businesses can support local communities? And we got a clear winner here. It's provide good jobs. Good wages, good hours, good benefits is what I would kind of interpret good jobs as. And that was, head and shoulders above the rest. The next 2 most popular ones had a slight edge, and those were making everyone welcome and promoting positive values. Donating to charity and hosting community events were the lowest. Kind of makes sense to me here because providing good jobs, that's kind of the most life-changing thing for most people, I'd say, on this than the other things. Well, let's see if we can break it down. Any differences in age here? Not particularly, except for maybe a few standouts. It looks like potentially our older respondents care more about the values, supporting good values. And our youngest respondents care more about sustainability. I think sustainability is kind of a buzzword that younger folks are hearing more often, thrown around in our, social media or other spheres. Maybe we're more attuned to that than some of the older responses. And I generally get the impression that, it's like your grandparents are the ones talking about values and how important values are and things like that. So that kind of made sense to me that those older respondents are more interested in that too. What if we break it down by willingness to pay again? Is there anything interesting? Well, I thought that this no, definitely not group, which again is only 5 people, the people that said, no, I definitely won't pay more to support businesses to buy from businesses that support local communities. They generally were much more higher preference for jobs and lower preference for sustainability. So to me, this seems like a Republican signature. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about customer preferences, or what are the biggest impact things when you decide where you're going to spend your money? Again, major winner here, quality. Either the quality of the product or the service. People want quality. They want it to be good, whatever they're going to get. The next big ones are being local, maybe not like a national or international chain, and price. And I would consider the combination of price and quality to be like value. Now, the interesting thing here is that community support, what this survey is all about, is actually the second lowest factor on these 8 factors. So to me, that puts everything kind of in perspective, that people want community support for communities out of businesses, but that's probably not the reason why they'll buy where they buy from. They're going to buy some quality products that are at a good value. and ideally from local places if they can. So you can't just get customers from supporting communities. You got to also have good products and services too. But you can, maybe increase your customer loyalty or, that satisfaction level with the community support. See, can we break that down by age and see anything interesting? Yes. Okay. So the interest in buying local here seems to go up with age. So the group that ranked this the lowest priority were the youngest respondents, people in their 20s and 30s. And then they ranked price, especially this 20s group, ranked price as like really more important than the other groups. To me, this fits into that narrative of younger people have less stable finances. It's really important that they spend less money. They're more price sensitive. And then and then also fitting in that narrative is this older group is the least kind of price sensitive. They ranked price the lowest on this stuff. So probably their finances are a little more stable. They have kind of the luxury of being able to think about things like supporting the community or buying local more than people that are, just trying to get by. All right, what about this willingness to pay? So big difference on your willingness to pay on how you ranked price, which that makes sense, right? It's nice to see people answering different questions kind of consistently based on other questions. So that's some predictability here, which is good. The other standouts were this interesting group to me. These people, no, I definitely wouldn't support pay more to buy from businesses that support local communities. Much more interested in price and hospitality and less in values and supporting community. To me, that seems like they're more interested in kind of self-oriented more than maybe societal or social-oriented. Selfish. Okay. The last two questions are kind of open form fields, and we asked like, what makes you want to be a regular at different businesses, and you can check out like the answers that people left in the overall results. Remember that link is here. It's in here, down here, so you can scroll through all those if you want. I made a word cloud here that shows kind of frequency of how many times these things were mentioned. Also a list view of the top few. So again, product quality, it matches what we saw in that ranking question. Generally, a lot of the things that were the keywords that were mentioned in here were those things that were in that ranking question. No real standouts to me on this. And the last question was asking about what are some businesses that come to mind that support your local community. And again, you can find those answers here. Some people listed a bunch of different things. And if you want to see kind of the commonalities, you can see the list view. Albertsons was number 1. Meriwether Cider was number 2. Now, Albertsons, the big grocery chain, they're all throughout Idaho, so they have a big advantage in that they're in a lot of local communities, that they would be mentioned by a lot of them, and obviously providing a lot of jobs and probably good jobs. And Meriwether Cider, but is a small company in Boise. But so why did they get so many responses? Well, so happens that this survey was their idea. They came to me and they said, hey, we want to learn more about supporting community and how businesses like us and other ones that care about this can do more to support community. So I designed this with their help, and they actually sent it out to their email list. So they got quite a few responses from their customers. But so that's like one of the reasons they got mentioned so much, but we should give them a lot of credit that this was their idea. So they really do care. And then there were several other breweries that were mentioned in Boise that as supporting their communities. That's cool too. Like Paya Brewing, for instance. And that is it. And our fun gift for this analysis is are these funny people in grocery carts. Now let's do the takeaways. My main takeaways: 80% of respondents said it's businesses' responsibility to support their local communities. And the best way they can do that is providing good jobs. Second, though supporting community is important, it's not really the reason people will buy from you. The real reason is quality, being local, and price. And then lastly, pretty much everybody will tell their family and friends about businesses that support their communities, and about over half of them will pay a little bit more to buy from them. So these are at least hearing from probably pretty civically minded people. So maybe this is a little bit less of the general population, but that's pretty encouraging. All the more reason to support your local communities. Maybe more loyalty, more marketing, word of mouth marketing, and you might even be able to charge a little bit more. Anyway, thanks for paying attention. Stay tuned for the next one.